Once you have a virtual machine provisioned in Windows Azure, obviously you're going to want to get in there and start configuring the system. So let's have a bit of a look at setting up some of your connection options and some of the features that are just available through Windows Azure once you have a virtual machine set up. So I just recently created this virtual machine here, and it's a server 2008 R2 image, and it got provisioned literally within minutes. So it's a very, very nice, very fast process. And once that server has been provisioned, we can immediately go in and just have a look at some of the basic configuration options that have been set. So I'm just going to click right here on the link. And this brings us by default to this start page. Now you can enable this skip quick start if you want to. That's totally up to you, but just some links there. But on the dashboard, you'll see the configuration that has been set up for this system. Now, as I mentioned, I just set this one up here. So under the dashboard, we're seeing some values here as to what has sort of taken place with respect to its resources. And in fact, even though it doesn't look like these are hyperlinks, you can actually enable or disable these values. If I click on CPU percentage, for example, I'm removing that from the chart. So each one of these can be enabled or disabled as you want to go through and see what sort of activity has been going on. So we'll just leave those enabled. But just additional features here, if you scroll down, the quick glance option will tell you the current state of the system, its DNS name, its local host name, public virtual IP address, so you're definitely going to want to take note of that. That is what you would specify if you were accessing this from any internal application or through any kind of firewall. There's the internal IP address right there if you are going to be setting up VPN access, for example. We've got that there, and tells us our size. And that was based on what we set up when we first did the wizard to create it. The location, the deployment identification, the subscription, and all that information. So all that quick information is right there. And then we've got some monitoring options here, some scaling options for availability set as well that we can configure, of course, in addition to what we did when we set it up in the first place. But one of the main things you're probably going to want to do fairly right off the bat, if you will, is to be able to get into its interface. So we've got remote connectivity options actually right from within our dashboard here. You can just click right here at the bottom where it says connect. And what this is going to do is it's going to launch a remote desktop connection. So it's going to be retrieving this RDP file. So you can save it to your desktop if you want that configuration saved, or we can just open it right from within here. So we'll just launch it right from here, and you're going to get a connect prompt, and of course we're going to want to go ahead and connect on that. And then you do have to specify, of course, the username and password that you set up during the wizard. So you just have to supply that. And you're going to get the certificate prompt as well. So yes, we do want to trust the certificate. And there we go. We are right into a remote desktop session. Now, one of the things you might want to take note of with that is I'm just going to minimize this and go back into our configuration here. The ability to get in through remote desktop is through the endpoint option here. And this does get set up by default when you create a new virtual machine. It sets up endpoints for PowerShell and remote desktop. Now, just a quick note, I have seen in several forums that the default remote desktop connection sometimes for some people does not work. No real reason given, but in most cases, the solution has been to simply delete this endpoint and recreate a new one. And all you have to do is just click right there on delete, just select it and hit delete, and then just hit add. And when you hit the add button, you just get a new wizard here to walk through and add in a new endpoint for remote desktop. And in most cases, that does fix the problem. And in fact, for this demonstration, I had to do exactly that. So I just deleted this, recreated the new one with its default state, and in I went. So now that we've got remote desktop access to the server, we can absolutely do, of course, whatever it is that we need to do for that system, just like any other server. And once we're done in here, we just log off and we are back into our regular desktop. So that's a quick introduction at looking at remoting in and setting up some of your configuration options for using virtual machines in Windows Azure.